The throne room of the Cathari Empire was a place that inspired both fear and awe. Great pillars carved from obsidian reached toward the high ceiling, and banners woven from shimmering metal threads hung proudly on the walls. At the center of it all sat Queen Zira, ruler of the Cathari, feared across countless worlds. Her very presence demanded silence. Her voice when she spoke carried like thunder. But that day the queen was not filled with power. She was filled with pain. Her armor, the living exosuit that had once made her invincible, clung to her body like a dying creature. The Cathari did not wear armor in the way humans did. Their royal suits were living organisms, grown and fused to their rulers. It was both protection and symbol, a sacred inheritance passed from queen to queen. For centuries, no blade had pierced it, no blast had broken it. Yet now, for the first time in history, the unbreakable armor was failing. Cracks had appeared along its surface. The once vibrant veins of energy that pulsed through it flickered weakly. Even the color of the armor, once a radiant silver, had dulled into gray. To the Cathari, this was not just a failing weapon. It was a failing throne. Queen Zira rose slowly, her movements stiff, and every step sent faint sparks along the fractures in her suit. She raised a clawed hand and demanded, "Why does my armor weaken?" Around her stood her court, nobles, generals, and the finest engineers of the Cathari species. They bowed low, their faces heavy with unease. The chief engineer, a tall Cathari with glowing implants across his arms, stepped forward. "My queen," he began carefully, "we have tested every known method. The living armor does not respond. We have tried to feed it new energy sources. We have repaired its broken shell. But each attempt fails. The suit resists us. It is dying." The queen's voice echoed through the hall, sharp as a blade. "The armor of the Cathari does not die. You are supposed to be the brightest minds of the Empire, yet you stand before me with excuses." No one dared answer. Some looked at the floor. Others silently prayed the queen's anger would not turn on them. At last, one of the younger advisors whispered, "There may be another way." The hall grew quiet. The queen's burning eyes fixed on him. "Speak." "There is a human engineer on the border world of Neria," the advisor said. "He is not Cathari, not trained in our science. But rumors claim he has repaired machines that no one else could understand. He sees things differently. If anyone could find a solution." The queen cut him off with a hiss. "A human?" The word left her mouth heavy with disbelief. The Cathari saw humans as a young and fragile race. They were clever, yes, but also reckless. To imagine that one of them could fix what Cathari engineers could not was almost insulting. Yet as silence filled the room again, Queen Zira looked down at her failing armor. She knew the truth. Her life, her throne, and perhaps her empire depended on finding an answer. Her voice lowered, cold and commanding. "Summon this human. Bring him here. If he fails, he will learn what it means to waste the time of a queen." Far away, on the quiet border world of Neria, Marcus Hale lived a simple life. He was an engineer who preferred machines to politics. His workshop was cluttered with scraps of metal, glowing circuits, and tools he had designed himself. Other humans came to him when their ships malfunctioned, or when their farming machines broke down. He never refused a challenge, no matter how strange. That morning, Marcus was repairing a broken water pump when the Cathari guards arrived. Their ship landed with a roar, kicking up dust that covered his workbench. Marcus looked up, squinting against the sun, and saw 3 towering figures step out. They wore black armor that gleamed like obsidian, and their eyes glowed faintly in the shade of their helmets. One of them spoke in a deep, mechanical voice. "Human engineer, by order of Queen Zira, you are summoned to the throne world." Marcus blinked, surprised. "The Queen of the Cathari?" "Yes. You will come now." Marcus had heard stories of the Cathari Empire, ruthless conquerors, proud rulers, unmatched in war. He had never imagined being summoned by their queen. Still, something in his nature stirred. Curiosity. A challenge. He nodded slowly, wiping grease from his hands. "All right, let me grab my tools." The journey to the Cathari throne world was long, but Marcus spent most of it studying. The guards had told him little, only that the queen's armor was failing and no Cathari could repair it. He had seen alien technology before, but nothing as advanced as living armor. The thought of trying to fix it both excited and unsettled him. When the ship landed on the throne world, Marcus was led through towering gates into the heart of the palace. The halls were vast, lined with statues of past queens, each wearing the same shining armor. He felt small among the alien grandeur, yet he kept his head high. At last he entered the throne room. There, seated on her great obsidian throne, was Queen Zira. Her armor, once legendary, now looked cracked and weary. Even in its broken state, it gave her an aura of power. Her eyes locked onto Marcus with an intensity that made his heart pound. "So," she said, her voice echoing across the chamber. "This is the human." Marcus bowed, not too low, but with respect. "Marcus Hale, engineer." The queen rose and the light caught the fractures in her armor. "You stand where Cathari minds have failed. You will look upon my armor. If you succeed, you will be rewarded. If you fail," her voice hardened, "you will not leave this palace alive." The Cathari nobles smirked at this. To them it was certain. No human could do what they could not. Marcus stepped closer, his mind already racing. He examined the armor carefully, noting the faint pulse of its veins, the way it seemed almost alive. He saw how the cracks did not just break the surface but ran deep, interfering with the energy inside. The Cathari engineers had tried to force repairs from the outside, patching the cracks like one would patch broken metal. But Marcus saw something different. He spoke carefully. "This isn't just armor. It's alive. It's not rejecting repair, it's rejecting your methods. You're trying to fix it like a machine. But it thinks like an organism. It needs healing, not forcing." The chamber stirred with murmurs. A mere human daring to correct the Queen's own engineers? Queen Zira's expression remained unreadable. "And what would you do, human?" Marcus met her gaze calmly. "Blend what you know with what I know. You're living technology with my human designs. It won't be easy. But it can be done." For a long moment silence hung in the air. Then the Queen lifted her chin. "One cycle. That is all I grant you. If the armor remains broken, so shall you." Marcus nodded, determination settling over him. "Then I had better get to work." Thus began the most unlikely of challenges. A lone human engineer tasked with saving the throne of an alien empire. The nobles watched with disbelief. The Queen watched with silent hope. And Marcus, with grease-stained hands and a mind full of ideas, prepared to prove that human ingenuity could do what others thought impossible. The broken throne waited. The armor waited. And so did history. The palace workshop of the Cathari Empire was unlike anything Marcus Hale had ever seen. It stretched for hundreds of meters, filled with strange machines, glowing tanks of liquid and walls lined with alien tools. The air hummed with energy, and the faint sound of organic systems breathing filled the silence. This was not a place of simple mechanics. It was a place where biology and technology blended into something alive. Marcus stood in the center of the workshop, his human toolkit slung over his shoulder. Compared to the shining Cathari devices, his tools looked small, almost primitive. The Cathari nobles who had followed him inside laughed quietly among themselves, whispering that this human would fail within moments. But Marcus was not listening to them. His eyes were fixed on the armor. The Queen's living exosuit rested on a stand in the center of the room. It pulsed faintly like the heartbeat of a sick animal. Its silver surface was cracked and faded, and energy veins that once glowed like rivers of light now flickered weakly. Even without anyone wearing it, the armor radiated power. It was alive, but it was suffering. Queen Zira entered behind him, her steps echoing across the floor. Without the armor, she wore only a simple robe, though even then her presence was commanding. She raised her voice sharp and clear. "Human," she said, "this is your challenge. My armor resists my own people. If you fail, the Empire will know your race is nothing more than a whisper that tried and vanished." Marcus turned slowly, meeting her gaze. "I didn't come here to vanish. I came here to fix it." Some of the nobles scoffed at his words, but the Queen silenced them with a glance. Her burning eyes returned to Marcus. "You may begin, but know this, if you damage it further, you will not leave this room." Marcus nodded. "Understood." He set his toolkit on a nearby table and began unpacking his devices. There was nothing fancy in the collection. A welding torch, a set of nanofabricators he had built himself, scanning goggles, and a collection of thin, flexible wires. To the Cathari, these tools looked like toys compared to their vast machines, but Marcus trusted them. They were extensions of his mind, shaped by years of solving problems others thought impossible. First, he scanned the armor with his goggles. A faint grid of light spread across the surface, revealing the deep fractures. He traced them with his hand, feeling the warmth of the armor's faint pulse. "It's not just broken," he murmured to himself. "It's starving," the chief Cathari engineer snorted. "Nonsense. We have fed it energy crystals of the highest quality." It rejected them all. Marcus shook his head. "Because you're trying to feed it like a machine. But this isn't a machine. It's alive. You don't force life. You nurture it." The Queen tilted her head slightly, studying him with curiosity. Marcus continued his inspection. He noticed tiny tendrils inside the cracks, almost like nerves. They were trying to grow, but something blocked them. The Cathari had patched over the cracks with layers of hard material, thinking strength would fix weakness. But the patches acted like cages, trapping the armor's natural healing. "You've been suffocating it," Marcus said aloud. The chief engineer bristled. "How dare you speak of our methods with such disrespect?" Queen Zira raised a hand, silencing the argument. "Let him work." Marcus took out a fine cutting tool and began carefully removing the Cathari patches. Each time he peeled away a piece, the armor pulsed faintly as if sighing with relief. The nobles gasped, horrified that a human dared to cut into the sacred armor. But the Queen watched closely, saying nothing. When the patches were gone, Marcus connected thin wires from his toolkit to the armor's veins. He ran a soft current through them, watching how the energy flowed. The veins flickered, then dimmed again. The flow was unstable. He frowned. "It doesn't just need energy. It needs balance." Pulling out his nanofabricator, Marcus began programming it to create microscopic machines. The Cathari engineers leaned closer, confused. To them, nanotechnology was crude compared to their biosuits. But Marcus had a different vision. "These nanobots won't force repairs," he explained aloud, partly for himself and partly for the Queen. "They'll act like gardeners, clearing the blockages, helping the armor's living tissue grow naturally again," the nobles muttered, mocking the simplicity of the idea. But the Queen's eyes narrowed with interest. Hours passed as Marcus worked, his hands steady, his mind sharp. He released the nanobots into the cracks, guiding them with soft pulses of energy. Slowly, the armor responded. The veins glowed a little brighter. The cracks began to seal, not with cold patches, but with living tissue knitting itself back together. The Queen stepped closer, her voice softer now. "It heals?" Marcus nodded. "It's not complete. This is only the beginning, but it's working." The next test was more difficult. Marcus needed to stabilize the energy core at the heart of the armor. He removed a panel near the chest piece and peered inside. What he saw amazed him. A living core like a beating heart surrounded by crystalline structures. It pulsed weakly, struggling to keep rhythm. "This is where it's dying," Marcus whispered. He carefully attached his scanners, measuring the energy flow. The core was trying to absorb power but could not hold it. The crystals around it were cracked, their surfaces jagged. They were cutting into the living tissue every time it tried to expand. Marcus spoke without looking up. "You treated the symptoms but not the wound. The crystals are the problem. They need to be reshaped, not replaced." The chief engineer scoffed again. "You cannot reshape living crystal. It will shatter." Marcus smiled faintly. "That's what you think." He pulled out a tool of his own design, a resonance tuner. It emitted vibrations at specific frequencies, fine enough to alter molecular structures without breaking them. He had once used it to repair delicate human ship engines. Now he aimed it at the cracked crystals. Carefully, he adjusted the frequency. The crystals trembled, then slowly began to shift. Their jagged edges smoothed, their cracks sealed. The living core pulsed stronger, no longer cut by the shards around it. The Queen's eyes widened slightly. She had seen countless battles, countless victories, but never had she seen her sacred armor respond so quickly to anyone's touch. The nobles fell silent, their mockery replaced by uneasy respect. By the end of the cycle, Marcus had repaired much of the armor's structure. The cracks were closing, the veins glowed brighter, and the core beat with a stronger rhythm. It was not fully healed, but it was alive again. Marcus stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's stable for now, but it still needs time. I'll have to design a permanent system that blends your biotech with my human nanotech. Only then will it be fully restored." Queen Zira approached the armor. She placed her hand on it, feeling its renewed pulse. For the first time in months, the armor answered her touch with strength instead of pain. She turned her gaze on Marcus. "You have done more in one cycle than my people have done in seasons," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was a strange note in it. Something like respect. Marcus nodded, tired but steady. Because I didn't try to control it. I tried to understand it. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke, her tone sharp again, though less harsh than before. Do not fail me now, human. Finish what you have started. If you succeed, you will stand honored among the Cathari. If you fail, her eyes flashed. You already know the price. Marcus met her gaze without fear. Then I'll succeed. That night, as Marcus remained in the workshop, the palace whispered with rumors. Some nobles called him a miracle worker. Others called him a danger. And in the shadows, enemies of the Queen began to plot. They whispered that her reliance on a human was a weakness. But Marcus did not know of their schemes. His mind was fixed on the armor, on the challenge before him. For him, it was not about power or politics. It was about the joy of solving a puzzle no one else could solve. The armor waited, the Queen watched, and the galaxy held its breath. The Cathari Palace workshop hummed with life. Machines of all shapes and sizes lined the walls, some tall as towers, others tiny as human fists, yet all pulsing with a strange alien energy. Marcus Hale moved carefully among them, his human hands steady as he prepared for the next stage of his work. He had stabilized the armor, but the living exosuit was still fragile. It would take more than repair. It would take understanding, patience, and creativity. The Queen had given him her trust, if only partially. Her presence hovered near the entrance of the workshop, observing quietly, her eyes sharp and calculating. She did not intervene, yet her energy filled the room. Marcus felt it as much as he saw it, a quiet pressure urging him to do his best. Around him, the Cathari engineers muttered among themselves, openly skeptical. Many were certain that the human would fail, that his primitive tools and ideas could not match centuries of Cathari bioengineering. Some whispered that relying on a human was a sign of desperation, a sign of weakness in the Queen herself. Marcus ignored the whispers. His focus was on the armor. He began by examining the surface more closely. Using his scanners, he identified areas where the armor's living tissue was still struggling to reconnect. Tiny veins, which should have pulsed with steady energy, were flickering unpredictably. Some areas were cool to the touch, showing signs of energy loss, while others were hot and tense, as if the armor itself was stressed. This is no ordinary repair, Marcus muttered to himself. It's a living organism with a broken heart. The chief Cathari engineer stepped forward, his voice dripping with derision. You speak as if it is a creature, human. It is technology, crafted by centuries of science. You cannot reason with it. You cannot nurture it. Marcus didn't answer. He simply reached for his nanofabricator and began programming it to operate in tandem with the armor's own biosignals. His idea was simple in theory, but difficult in execution. Tiny nanobots would weave themselves into the armor's living tissue, not to dominate it, but to guide its healing. You cannot understand this process, the engineer continued. We have tried every method. You will fail. Marcus paused and looked at him calmly. I don't have to understand it the way you do. I just have to find a way that works. The engineer opened his mouth to retort, but a sudden flash of light from the armor silenced him. Marcus had connected a series of energy conduits to the suit, carefully synchronizing them with the nanobot's pulses. The armor responded immediately. The veins glowed brighter, the cracks seemed to shrink, and for a moment the living exosuit hummed in quiet harmony. The Queen's eyes narrowed in curiosity. She had never seen the armor respond like this. It was as if it recognized Marcus, as if it trusted him. Marcus's hands moved quickly but carefully. He adjusted the energy flow, redirecting power to the core of the armor. The living heart of the suit, once weak and flickering, now throbbed with steady rhythm. Almost there, he whispered. A sudden alarm rang through the workshop. Lights flashed red, and the walls vibrated as if the entire building itself were reacting. The Cathari engineers looked alarmed. The armor is overloading, one shouted. Marcus glanced at the readouts. No, it's not overloading, it's waking. He had anticipated this. The living exosuit, long neglected and damaged, was reacting to the human nanobots and the energy flow. Its systems were realigning, integrating the repair efforts in ways no Cathari had predicted. Sparks flew from the panels and the floor beneath them vibrated slightly, but Marcus remained calm, guiding the energy carefully, matching the pulses to the armor's heartbeat. The nobles gasped. It moves on its own. Marcus smiled faintly. It's alive. That's what I told you. One of the Cathari engineers, pale with fear, muttered under his breath. No human could understand life like this. But Marcus ignored him. He worked tirelessly, adjusting, nurturing, and guiding. Hours passed. The armor pulsed steadily now, its energy flowing in perfect harmony. The cracks had shrunk almost entirely, and the surface glimmered with renewed strength. Queen Zira stepped closer, her eyes scanning every inch. She had seen warriors fall, fleets destroyed, and planets conquered. Yet never had she felt such power emanate from a single piece of technology. And yet this power was different. It was not threatening, it was alive, breathing, and responsive. You are making progress, she said quietly, her tone measured. Marcus nodded. It's not complete. It needs more than repair. It needs integration, my technology and your living system together. Once that happens, it will be stronger than ever. The Queen's eyes gleamed. And you are certain you can do this? Marcus's lips curved in a small smile. Yes, I understand it differently than your engineers. I see patterns they cannot see. I see solutions where they see only rules. The nobles stirred uneasily. Some whispered in disbelief. Others, more curious, began to watch his every movement. Then a sudden tremor shook the workshop. One of the large machines in the corner sparked violently, sending arcs of blue energy across the floor. The Cathari engineers jumped back, alarmed. Marcus moved quickly, directing the energy into a safe channel, using the tools at hand. It's fine, he said calmly. I've accounted for these fluctuations. The armor is stabilizing the workshop's energy. The Queen raised an eyebrow. It is controlling the energy itself? Marcus nodded. Yes, it's responding to the nanobots, integrating them into its systems. That's why it's stronger than before. It's learning how to heal itself. A low murmur spread among the Cathari nobles. Some were awed. Some were angry. All were silent in the presence of something extraordinary. Days passed. Marcus worked tirelessly, often through the long hours of the Cathari night cycle. He slept little, ate little, but his mind remained sharp. Every day the armor improved. It learned, adapted, and responded to his guidance. Each day the Queen came to observe, often standing silently at the edge of the workshop, sometimes speaking a word or two of encouragement. But not all were pleased. Some nobles saw Marcus's progress as a threat. If a human could succeed where Cathari engineers had failed, it challenged centuries of tradition. A few whispered that the Queen was weakening herself by trusting him. Others feared that outsiders would gain influence over the empire. Even as Marcus worked, a subtle tension grew in the palace. He noticed the glances, the whispers, the eyes that followed him not with curiosity but with suspicion. Yet he focused on the task before him. The armor was alive and it needed him. One afternoon, Marcus paused to examine the energy core. It pulsed steadily, stronger than ever, but he could feel faint irregularities. He realized that the living exosuit was reacting to the Queen's own energy, her presence, her life force. This was why it had resisted previous repairs. Only a human perspective, one that could integrate multiple systems without dominating them, could guide it toward true healing. He adjusted the flow of the nanobots, syncing them carefully with the armor's responses. Slowly he felt the suit relax, its tension easing, the flickering veins of energy stabilized. Queen Zira approached, placing her hand on the armor. She felt its pulse, and for the first time in months she felt hope. You are remarkable, human, she said softly. Marcus looked up, catching her gaze. It's not me. It's understanding, listening, and working with it. Anyone could do it with the right approach. The Queen studied him for a long moment, then stepped back, thoughtful. Her mind was sharp, as always, calculating the possibilities. A human had done what no Cathari could do, and in doing so had changed the rules of what was possible. But their work was far from over. As the armor began to stabilize, a distant alarm sounded. Red lights flashed across the palace corridors. The Queen's security officers ran past the workshop, shouting warnings. Marcus frowned. What is it? He asked. The Queen's expression hardened. A rival warlord plots against me. They see my reliance on a human as weakness. They intend to strike. Marcus looked at the armor. It was healing, but it had yet to face battle. He straightened, determination in his eyes. Then we prepare. If they attack, the armor must protect you, and we will make sure it does. The Queen's eyes met his. For the first time, she seemed not only cautious but impressed. She had seen countless victories, but the idea of a human engineer preparing her living armor for war, that was something new. Outside, the Empire was restless. Within the workshop, Marcus worked with precision, focus, and courage. The armor pulsed, stronger with each passing hour, and the Queen watched silently, knowing that history was unfolding before her eyes. In the coming days, the palace would face its first true test of this new alliance. A warlord who believed the Queen vulnerable, and a human engineer who would prove that ingenuity, courage, and understanding could triumph over doubt and tradition. The workshop glowed with life, sparks flying as human and alien knowledge intertwined, and Marcus Hale was ready. The palace was alive with tension. Outside, storm clouds of dust and smoke gathered over the horizon as Queen Zira's rival warlord advanced with his forces. The Cathari nobility whispered anxiously in the corridors. Many had not expected the warlord to strike so soon, and fewer still had anticipated the Queen's reliance on a human engineer. Yet in the workshop, Marcus Hale worked with calm determination, preparing the living armor for the first true test of its renewed strength. The armor rested on its stand, gleaming silver under the alien light. Its veins pulsed steadily, its energy core vibrant and strong. Marcus had integrated his nanobot system carefully, allowing the armor to repair itself continuously while maintaining the Queen's natural biosignals. In short, the suit could fight, adapt, and heal in ways no Cathari had ever imagined. "Are you certain it can withstand battle?" asked one of the Queen's advisors, a high-ranking general with energy tattoos along his arms. His tone carried skepticism, if not fear. Marcus looked up from his tools, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's not about strength alone. It's about adaptability. The armor responds, learns, and strengthens itself during combat. If it fails, I will be the first to know, but I trust it." The Queen entered the workshop, her movements precise and regal. She wore her ceremonial robes, but even without the armor on, her presence carried authority. She stepped closer to Marcus, her eyes scanning the repaired suit. "You have done well," she said, her voice calm yet commanding. "But now the true test begins." Marcus nodded. "I understand." Outside the palace, the warlord's forces gathered at the edge of the plains. They were vast in number, with towering machines, weaponized drones, and heavily armored warriors. Their leader, Varkun, a massive Cathari general with jagged scars across his face, grinned at the approaching palace. "The Queen is weak," he said to his officers. "She relies on a human now? This is our chance. Strike hard. Show no mercy." Inside, Queen Zira observed from the palace balcony, Marcus at her side. She ran her hand along the armor, now fully prepared for her to don. The suit pulsed stronger than ever, a living extension of her will. "Are you ready?" Marcus asked. "I was born ready," the Queen replied. With that, she stepped into the armor. It enveloped her body like a second skin, adjusting instantly to her movements. Marcus watched closely, ensuring the nanobot systems integrated perfectly with her natural biosignals. As she moved, the armor flexed and glowed, almost as if it recognized her as its rightful wearer once again. The nobles fell silent. For the first time, many of them saw the full power of Queen Zira's restored armor. It was more than protection. It was alive, thinking, and ready. The warlord's forces advanced quickly, crashing through the plains like a tidal wave. Dust and debris rose into the air, hiding their true numbers until they were nearly upon the palace. Queen Zira raised her hand and the palace defenses activated. Energy shields sprang to life, blocking incoming blasts, and automated turrets fired precise bolts of energy at the enemy. But Marcus knew that the real test would not be the automated systems. It would be the armor itself, worn by the Queen in direct combat. The first clash occurred when the warlord's elite units breached the palace gates. Queen Zira stepped forward, the living armor glowing with power. She moved faster than any Cathari warrior, her steps almost gliding over the ground. Her armor absorbed blasts, redirected energy flows, and even deflected physical strikes without slowing her. Marcus watched in awe. Every movement she made was amplified by the armor's systems. Where she thought, the armor responded. Where she acted, it strengthened her. It was no longer merely a suit. It was a partner, a living weapon fused with her skill and intuition. The warlord's forces struck with relentless intensity. Swarms of drones attacked from the air, attempting to overwhelm the Queen. But the armor responded instantly. Its energy pulses created shields that deflected the drones, while nanobots inside repaired minor damage as it occurred. Queen Zyra moved among her enemies like a force of nature, cutting through ranks with precise strikes. The battlefield shook with energy discharges. Yet Marcus remained focused in the workshop, monitoring the armor's systems. He adjusted energy flows, ensuring that the Queen's vital signs remained stable, that the armor's adaptive systems were optimized. "You've done well," Queen Zyra said, her voice amplified by the armor's internal systems, carrying over the battlefield. "This armor will fight as I do, and better." The warlord Varkun charged forward himself, a massive figure clad in heavy combat armor. He believed that he alone could turn the tide, relying on his brute strength and experience. Queen Zyra met him directly. Their collision sent shockwaves through the ground. Varkun swung a massive energy mace, but the living armor flexed, absorbing the blow and redirecting it harmlessly into the ground. Sparks flew, but the Queen did not falter. "You rely too much on tradition," Marcus murmured from the control station. "The armor adapts. Watch." Queen Zyra's movements became more fluid, almost preemptive. The armor anticipated Varkun's strikes, reinforcing itself where needed and healing microfractures as they occurred. Every strike he made was countered not just by skill, but by the armor itself, reacting faster than any ordinary Cathari mind could. With a final, decisive move, the Queen struck Varkun's armor, sending him stumbling backward. He realized too late that the Queen's strength was no longer just hers. It was the power of the living exosuit, enhanced by Marcus's human ingenuity. The battle raged for hours. The Queen's forces, inspired by her strength, fought with renewed courage. The warlord's troops, stunned by the effectiveness of the restored armor, faltered. Every time they thought they could overwhelm the Queen, the suit adapted, defending her and striking back with precision. In the workshop, Marcus monitored the systems, making small adjustments, guiding energy flows, and ensuring the armor's core remained stable. He had done his part, but now the Queen was proving the ultimate test. That human creativity combined with Cathari technology could exceed even the greatest expectations. As the sun began to set over the plains, the warlord's forces were retreating. Their morale shattered, their machines damaged, they fled in disarray. Queen Zyra stood victorious, her armor glowing brightly, undamaged despite the fierce battle. The nobles rushed forward, a mix of awe and relief in their expressions. Many of them had doubted Marcus, had doubted the Queen's wisdom in trusting a human. Now they could see the truth. Ingenuity, courage, and partnership could triumph over tradition and brute force. Queen Zyra removed her helmet, revealing her face, sharp and proud. She looked at Marcus, her eyes burning with admiration. "Who fixed my armor?" she roared, her voice carrying across the battlefield. Marcus stepped forward, calm and steady. "I did," he said simply. The Queen studied him for a long moment, then laughed softly, a sound that carried both power and approval.
"Then a human has saved a queen." Even in the aftermath, the palace whispered with stories.
Nobles debated the implications. A human engineer, once dismissed, had not only repaired the living armor but had contributed to a victory that no Cathari mind alone could have achieved. Queen Zyra, however, remained focused on the future. She knew that Marcus's ingenuity was a resource, a reminder that strength alone was not enough. She turned to Marcus. "You will remain with me. The Empire is vast and your work is not finished. The armor will continue to grow stronger with your guidance." Marcus nodded, a small smile on his face. "I understand. I will do everything I can." Outside, the remnants of the warlord's forces fled into the horizon. The Queen's victory was complete, and the legend of her restored living armor and the human who had saved it began to spread across the Cathari Empire. In that moment, Marcus Hale realized something extraordinary. Humanity, though small in number and young in the galaxy, could achieve greatness. Through ingenuity, courage, and understanding, humans could stand alongside the most powerful empires in the stars. The armor pulsed with life, stronger than ever. The Queen stood tall, proud, and unyielding. And a human engineer, once dismissed, had forever changed the course of history. The test was complete. The true power of innovation had been proven, and the galaxy had taken notice. The palace of the Cathari Empire was quiet now, but the echoes of battle still lingered. Outside, the dust of the plains had settled, leaving the battlefield scarred and silent. Queen Zira's forces had returned victorious, and the warlord's army had fled into the distance, defeated and humiliated. The living armor, once broken and fading, now pulsed with strength, a testament to both Cathari legacy and human ingenuity. Inside the palace, the court buzzed with whispers. Nobles who had once doubted Marcus Hale now regarded him with a mix of awe, respect, and perhaps unease. A human, small, fragile yet clever, had not only repaired the Queen's armor but had played a decisive role in her victory. The implications rippled through the Empire. If a human could do this, what else might they accomplish? Marcus stood near the restored armor, watching as Queen Zira moved with ease, testing the suit's agility and responsiveness. Even now she struck and blocked imaginary attacks, the armor glowing and adapting to each motion. It was alive, almost sentient and fully restored. "You have done more than I expected," the Queen said, her voice carrying both authority and admiration. "My armor is no longer just a weapon. It is a partner, and you have made that possible." Marcus shook his head, smiling faintly. "It's not just me. It's understanding the armor, listening to it, working with it. Anyone could do it with the right perspective." The Queen regarded him carefully. "Perhaps, but not many would have the courage or the patience to try where my own people failed." The palace council convened shortly afterward. Nobles, generals, and scholars gathered to discuss the implications of the Queen's victory and the human engineer who had made it possible. Some argued that relying on a human was risky. Others saw it as a revelation, a reminder that innovation could come from unexpected places. Marcus listened quietly as the discussion unfolded. He was used to humans being underestimated, and he knew that even the smallest achievements could inspire change. Yet he also knew that respect had to be earned and trust had to be proven. Queen Zira addressed the council, her voice calm but commanding. "Marcus Hale has shown what can be achieved when ingenuity, courage, and understanding are combined. He has saved my armor, and with it my life and the stability of this empire. I declare that he will remain at my side as chief engineer of the Royal Workshop. His work is far from complete, and his contributions will guide us into a stronger future." A ripple of murmurs swept through the council. Many Cathari had never seen a human honored in such a way. Some were skeptical, but most were quietly impressed. It was clear that the Queen's judgment carried weight, and that Marcus had earned her respect. In the days that followed, Marcus began the process of integrating his designs permanently into the armor. He worked with a small team of Cathari engineers who had survived the battle, teaching them how to blend human nanotechnology with the living systems of the exosuit. It was slow, painstaking work. The Cathari were precise and methodical, while Marcus relied on intuition, experimentation, and improvisation. At first, the engineers were skeptical, reluctant to follow a human's methods. But as the armor continued to improve and as Marcus demonstrated the effectiveness of his approach, their skepticism turned to respect. Queen Zira often visited the workshop, observing quietly or offering insights from her own experience. Though she did not interfere with Marcus's work, her presence was a steady reminder of the importance of the task. Together, human and Cathari ingenuity reshaped the armor into something unprecedented, stronger, faster and more adaptive than it had ever been. One evening, as the twin suns of the Cathari homeworld set in the sky, casting golden light across the palace, Queen Zira called Marcus to her side. "You have done more than repair my armor," she said. "You have changed the way I think about our technology, our traditions, and perhaps even our future. Tell me, human, what do you see for the Cathari Empire?" Marcus considered her question carefully. "I see potential," he replied. "The Cathari have incredible knowledge, incredible technology, but you are limited by what has always been done. If you combine your experience with new ideas, new perspectives, you can achieve far more. You can be not just powerful but innovative and adaptable in ways no one expects." The Queen's eyes glimmered with approval. "And you believe humanity can help us achieve this?" "I do," Marcus said firmly. "We are small, young, and underestimated. But we think differently. And sometimes thinking differently is what it takes to solve the impossible." Word of the human engineer's success spread quickly across the empire and beyond. Merchants, travelers, and diplomats spoke in hushed tones about the human who had saved the Queen's armor. Other species took notice, some with curiosity, others with caution. Marcus's work had not only restored a living exosuit, it had changed perceptions about humans in the galaxy. Queen Zira used this newfound respect to strengthen her alliances and secure her empire's borders. She often displayed the restored armor during ceremonies, a living testament to the combined genius of human and Cathari innovation. When she did, she always acknowledged Marcus, the quiet human engineer who had made the impossible possible. Not everyone accepted the change easily. Some Cathari nobles continued to whisper in private, wary of a human holding influence in the empire. They questioned whether Marcus could truly be trusted, and whether relying on outsiders was wise. But Queen Zira had seen the results with her own eyes. She had felt the power of the armor restored by human ingenuity, and she knew that innovation could not be bound by tradition. "Let them whisper," she told Marcus one day. "What matters is what works, and you have proven that humans can make a difference." Marcus nodded.
I'm not here to replace anyone.
"I'm here to help, show what's possible when we work together." The Queen smiled faintly. "Then you will remain at my side. The Empire will remember this, human, and so will history." Months passed. Marcus continued refining the armor, adding subtle enhancements, improving the integration of nanotechnology and living tissue. Queen Zira trained tirelessly in combat, her movements fluid and precise, her confidence restored. The armor responded instantly to her will, adapting to every strike, every maneuver. Together, human and Cathari had created something extraordinary, a living weapon capable of facing any threat in the galaxy. During this time, Marcus also helped train a new generation of engineers. Some were Cathari, some human, and some from other allied species. He taught them to approach problems creatively, to combine logic with intuition, and to respect the balance between life and technology. The lessons went beyond armor repair. They became lessons about collaboration, ingenuity, and courage. Queen Zira observed quietly, sometimes participating, sometimes allowing Marcus to lead. She understood that strength alone was not enough to maintain an empire. Innovation, adaptability, and trust were equally important. One day, as Marcus worked on a minor adjustment to the armor, Queen Zira entered the workshop. She stood silently for a moment, watching him carefully. "You have done more than fix my armor," she said softly. "You have left a mark on this empire that will not be forgotten. Humans will be remembered not as weak outsiders, but as partners, as creators, as equals in potential." Marcus paused and looked up. "I didn't do it alone. The armor was alive. It needed guidance, yes, but it responded because we worked with it, not against it." The Queen nodded. "And that is the lesson I will carry forward. Strength is important, but understanding and collaboration are what make power truly lasting." Marcus smiled. "Then the future is brighter than ever." Word spread beyond the Cathari Empire. Other civilizations took notice of the human engineer who had saved a queen and strengthened an entire empire. Diplomats sought his counsel. Scholars studied his methods. Even rival warlords and enemies reconsidered the underestimated humans, realizing that their ingenuity could not be dismissed. Through Marcus's work, humanity had made a mark on the galaxy, not through conquest or force, but through creativity, courage, and problem-solving. The Cathari Empire thrived, stronger and more adaptable than ever, and Marcus's name became a symbol of human potential. Queen Zira, now fully confident in her armor and her empire, stood tall. The living exosuit pulsed in harmony with her will, a testament to collaboration, innovation, and trust. She looked at Marcus and spoke simply, with the weight of history behind her words. "Humanity has proven itself, and so have you." Marcus nodded, quietly proud. "It's only the beginning. There's more we can do together." The armor glowed with life. The Queen moved with unmatched strength, and a human engineer stood by her side, a symbol of hope, ingenuity, and the potential of collaboration across species. The galaxy had seen what humans could do, and it would not forget.